man D-Train over there. You're the one for me. Reason why, well, first of all, let me introduce myself. How you doing? My name is New. I go by New, just simple NEW. Nickname kind of stuck with me since childhood. A friend of mine gave it to me. Growing up, my man Don Q, may he rest in peace. And I'd like to welcome everybody to another edition of No Fan Sports Podcast, man. And I guess, you know what, matter of fact, too, while we at it, let me go straight into I got to hit this disclaimers, man. We got to do this disclaimer real quick because of the subject matter. But also that tune that was playing, I'd like to dedicate this particular podcast to my man, Big Ben. We're going to bring all this together in just a second. All right. Let me read this first. No Fan Sports Podcast provides this podcast as a public service, but it's neither a legal interpretation nor a statement of No Fan Sports Podcast policy. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendations by No Fan Sports Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or in any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by myself are those of my own and do not necessarily reflect the view of No Fan Sports Podcast or any of its officials. And also, while we're at it, go ahead to Fair Use Act disclaimer, copyright disclaimer, use section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, which I'm going to be giving, comment, news, reporting, scholarship, research. Fair use is permitted by the copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips to balance in favor of fair use. Okay, with that said, like I said, that particular track was a D-Train track. You're the one for me. We used to hear it a lot back in the day growing up in our youth. And the track, I'm gonna put, like I said, I was gonna put this all together. The track for me, it reminds me of a certain group of people or neighborhood. And there's one particular gentleman in particular who I'm about to speak on, one man who I'm dedicating this show to, my man Big Ben, just passed away not long ago. This reminds me of the Davidsons, you know. Davidson was a neighborhood growing up in Detroit neighborhood where I grew up at. And it was a little section, you know, our areas had their little sections, everybody would remind me of the Davidsons because, well, we would call them Avante, which they changed their name to somewhat after a few parties. I don't know who did that, who decided to do that, but that was some great marketing genius back in the day. But anyway, neighborhood grew up by, you know what I'm saying? This particular gentleman who I dedicated the show to, Big Ben was my man. He was an older G over in the neighborhood over there with Davidson Way, man. Shout out to those fellas over there. They know who they are. If they ever catch this podcast, if y'all checking it out. But anyway, he was an OG over there around the way, you know, Big Ben. I knew of him, but I didn't know him personally like that during my earlier years, man. But I knew of him, you know. So the first time we had actually spoken to one another, I never told him this, man. He would never remember it anyway. But when he had spoken to me, he actually mentioned my name. He's like, "What's up, New? You know, such." And I was like, I was shocked because I didn't know him like that, and I didn't know he knew who I was. You know, I didn't know he knew who I was. You know, even though, which is why I'm about to connect this together. You know, growing up, you know, I played a few sports and different things like that. You know, I ain't gonna toot my own horn, but I think you at least know I was on the field or whatever. You know, football was my first love. That's what inspired me to do, you know, not just this podcast, but that's what, you know, I fell in love with sports. It was football that I fell in love with. And I was, you know, out of the sports that I played, I was probably the best sport I had for me. And, you know, like I said, you at least know I'm on the field. Okay. So, you know, when he spoke to me, I was like, oh man, this OG from Davidson, man, my man, Big Ben, you know, whoa. Never thought nothing about it. You know, I was just shocked that he even knew who I was. Long story short, come back around, fast forward. Like I said, my man just passed a few months ago, you know, may he rest in peace, rest in power, might I say. And I'm doing this podcast now with him in my heart because, you know, when I started doing some of these things, podcasts, or even, a few sports little groups or whatever that I follow a group members of or what have you. He had one of his own as well, and I invited him over to the ones that I was already in, and every night, me and Ben should go back and forth, and he was always chat. He would always go at me as far as certain things, and just anything. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't realize at that time when we first met and spoke, and he spoke to me. I didn't know who he was. Well, I didn't know he knew who I was. It's funny now, you understand, because of the dialogue that we shared before he passed, man. My man was a sports junkie like myself. So I play, like I said, I played ball back in the day. So, if you was from around my way, you at least knew I was on the field. And that was our connection, man. And I couldn't understand it until, some years recent. Like I said, he just passed. Rest in peace, my man, Big Ben. Nevertheless, recently, it's one of the coaches out there, man. One of those youth league coaches just got caught on camera, my man. I don't know what these folks do stuff, man. There's cameras everywhere, people post. But anyway, it's been floating around, social media. I hadn't really taken a look at it because I'm like, I'm somewhat old school when you go back to the as far as the sports things concerned. It's a contact sport. Yes, there was a lot of things that had taken place as far as the activity and personal involvement, as far as discipline, as far as athletes was concerned. On the youth level, little league level, high school, college, and all that, you had some issues out there with. I mean, hell, you got to be either just especially if you were alive during that time. And if you really a true sports aficionado, everybody remembers, especially if you're from this particular area, in this metropolitan Detroit area, this Michigan region, you remember a great situation with my man, Buddy Hayes, reached out there and snatched up a young man who played for Clemson. I think it was a fumble recovery. He was running back or something like that. And he jumped out on the field and he clotheslined. This is a heralded coach in Ohio State history. Woody Hayes, look him up. A lot of you guys probably won't remember. A lot of you might not like to remember that era because they considered somewhat of a three yards in a cloud of dust era. But hell, he had a running back that's done something during his tenure that nobody has. I don't think it'll ever be repeated. He was a back-to-back Heisman winner. But anyway, Woody reached out there and clotheslined a player. Caught firestorm behind that, man. Eventually, that's what got him fired from the university. We know about Bobby Knight and his tirades at Indiana and several situations. Those things take place, and on the lower scale, I'm sure they do as well. Like I said, growing up, this is some of the things we dealt with. But when I first actually dove into the clip and actually started watching it, took a good look at it just to see the little 30 seconds of it or whatever. And let me go back a little bit further too. No. Okay. Dove into it. So I seen it. Boom. My man head slapped him. The first head slap, I don't make this, I don't want to sound bad, but the first head slap I understood, but I didn't understand the aggression. It was a little bit too aggressive for me. Then he went back for another, got him again with even, further aggression. The first one was already a little bit much. Then when you hit scene with the second one, now, we digging into the abuse type of thing. It's just a bad situation. Growing up when I played ball, getting slapped on that shake up, coach grab your face mask, shake your head up, slap you across the head. Come on, go, get your head in the game. You want to, you got those. I mean, I even grew up in the era when I went to a school with paddling. Paddling was still, that was acceptable back then. We paddled at school. So I remember those eras. Was it right? I don't know. I don't even really want to get off into all that and dwell that deep into that particular part of the topic, but little discipline, I remember it. But what this coach did, my man went overboard. He went drastically overboard. So much overboard that talking about, from what I'm understanding at this point, he's being charged with assault and what have you. And they, you know, even though the young man's parent decided not to press charges on the coach, I guess the jurisdiction wise, you know, it's going down anyway, needless to say. So, but anyway, my man had posted an apology, man, and I read this, and I picked this up from a news article from the it was NBC News, written by David K. Lee, Lee, L-I spelled, and it's just one part of it, man, that I just wanted to read, and this was the quote from the coach. This is Gaddon, Georgia, and I'm gonna go back and get you up to speed with that too. And I'm gonna tell you why it's like a double-edged sword for me with this, but you know that he was too aggressive. But anyway, he said, "This is quote: I'm not going to make excuses for what I did. I was wrong. I shouldn't have disciplined him in public. I should have waited until we got back." This was William said, quote, "At the end of the day, I apologize to him, the kids, the city down here, and my family back home." Okay, now, okay, he shouldn't have disciplined him in public. Okay, how about you shouldn't have just disciplined him that way? Period. That was a little bit too. That was just a little bit too much. Too much aggression make me think that your son or daughters or your children at home might possibly be in some danger or whatever, because that was just a little bit too much. You know, you went for the beat down of a 9-year-old or whatever on that second blow, especially. The first one was already enough. But let me say this. A few years ago, I had the experience to get down there to, and it's not Kissimmee, it's Kissimmee, Florida. I don't think we played in Kissimmee. We played in, I forget what city we played in, but it was during this time of year when they go down there, various teams across the nation go down for a Florida youth football league, and this is like a round robin play of football down there. Now, we already know, or we've heard tales of the culture in Florida. As far as the youth football, it's a lot of gambling and betting and different things that goes on and take place with these particular youth programs. I mean, hell, I listened to a gentleman that made his way to the NFL. He's from that, I think he's from that Miami area, Dade County. Goes by Major Nine out in the music world. Last I think he was playing for the Browns, defensive end. But he has lyrics in one of his songs where he speaks how how the Doughboys pay them for good plays down there in Florida. You know, betting on youth football down in Florida, from what I understand, is pretty toxic. Good or bad, I'm not judging them. That's what they do. Okay, I can understand it. We not go make it seem like it's some treacherous event, because we got, we have situations where you used to bet numbers and use numbers and from different states to do certain things. They bet on all kind of things. And you had groups that would come down on, shop owners and different things like that. You had regular legal businesses and forced them to do things. So, it's just issues. I'm not here to judge whose issues was better, but at the end of the day, I'm thinking maybe a lot of that pressure may have been put on my man, the coach, for that particular youth football team. Bro, you was out of line. That was too much. Like I said, I come from an era where we used to, head slap or two, you used to catch from a coach, grab face mask, shake you up. Even in practice, man, we had some coaches that was very aggressive with us. This was all in, as far as what we felt was more like, a manhood type of thing, a situation at this particular time. But today's game doesn't necessarily reflect that. That's a whole nother topic. I can go on and on about that, but I did, I would have felt remiss or whatever had I not spoken on this particular situation, especially considering I do sports podcasts. Football is my first calling. And it was just out there. And like I said, once I seen it, I was just, my man, yeah, you went a little bit too far. So, Coach, not only should you have not done that in front of everybody and waited till he's gotten, that's just something that you shouldn't do. Just too aggressive, way too aggressive on that young man. But if your pockets was dependent on it or your life was dependent on that particular play, well, I guess maybe that's the reason why you did what you did. They say they bet on football down there. Not saying he was, or was a part of it, but hey, it is what it is. Just my 2 cents on that particular topic. Again, I'm your host. Go by New. Just ask that you don't bring your bromances and womancers in here. This is not the place for you. You can hang around if you like, but you might not get the answers that you dig. Coming up a little bit later on, man, we still hadn't got a chance to get into that Spence and Crawford thing, man. I wanted to talk heavily on that. Be doing that shortly coming up. Again, hit these like buttons, all that kind of stuff, the DMs, the whole hookup, man, so we can get this thing rocking and rolling. I'll let y'all later. Like I said again, rest in peace, my man, Big Ben. Peace.